4 out of the 5 Paris Olympians return to competition. Automatic world selection spots are up for grabs, and there's a pathway to the World Championships where Frederick Richard is not named to the 2025 World Gymnastics Championships Team. For those new here, I'm Kensley, the host of Neutral Deductions, a podcast all about men's gymnastics. This is episode 78, where I preview the 2025 U.S. National Gymnastics Championships. I am recording this preview as of Friday, August 1st, so as always, there is a decent chance that there is going to be change between now and the start of championships. Typically, we see some sort of athletes drop out or some movement here and there. So take all of this with a little bit of a grain of salt as we preview these championships. So first and foremost, who is returning? Well, we have the 4 Olympians, Brody Malone, Stephen Edarosic, Asher Hong, and Frederick Richard. I would say notably missing from this competition are the other members of the Olympic team, which are Shane Wiskus, Coy Young, and Paul Judah. Paul, of course, being on the team, and Coy and Shane being the traveling replacement alternates. There hasn't really been any statement from any of them as to why they are not competing. Shane, of course, we know was dealing with injury. Coy had been dealing with an injury but had returned to compete at the NCAA championships, and it was assumed that he was going to be competing at the U.S. championships. Paul has had what I would consider the year of a lifetime, making the Olympic team when he certainly wasn't considered a shoo-in, becoming an Olympic medalist, making the all-around final, being the highest ranked all-arounder from the U.S., and then winning the NCAA title with his team and proposing to his longtime girlfriend. So I think for many people, they have wondered, is Paul going to retire soon? I think that is a decent probability. And the reason maybe you wouldn't announce a retirement before the U.S. championships is you are being paid as being part of a member of the national team. And then if you retire, you would be giving up that funding. So I think it is possible that we see some sort of retirement from Paul Judah after these upcoming championships. But of course, that is no inside information. That is just an outside observer looking in. Now, what is different at these championships? So for those of you who are longtime Neutral Deductions listeners who know the nitty-gritty of what's happening in men's gymnastics, I'm going to catch people up for about a minute to a minute and a half, so bear with me here. So first and foremost, there is the return of the bonus program. So if you came in to start watching men's gymnastics in the 2024 season, you would not have seen the bonus system added to different scores, but the bonus system is actually not new to the U.S. men's program. The bonus system was implemented in early 2022, and it was given as a way to incentivize U.S. athletes to try more difficulty on the national stage without risking losing their spot on the national team due to falling due to trying these upgrades. So at the high end of the bonus system spectrum, you see that athletes can get up to over a point in difficulty added to their score. So one example is Asher Hong on vault. His Risei Guang, which is a 5-6 vault, it gets over a point in bonus just for doing that vault. So you may see some really wacky and high scores from this competition. And just know that these scores are not necessarily real when comparing them to the national stage. Now, USA Gymnastics usually does a pretty good job breaking out the scores between those with bonus and those without bonus. So when naming the national champions, they are going to be using these, what I call fake scores, the scores with the bonus system. But when they are choosing some of the World Championship team members, or when you're looking to compare of how do these US athletes compare internationally, you're going to want to look at the scores without bonus. Now, there have been a lot of changes made to the code of points as well since the last Olympic Games. So one of the major changes is men's gymnastics routines used to count 10 skills. Now they count 8. So scores are going to be lower than you saw in the last Olympic cycle. And that is okay. That is expected. So if you follow along, I'll give you an idea of what is a good score and what is not a good score based on this new code of points. All vaults were downgraded. So for example, as I mentioned, Asher's Risei Guang, which is one of the most difficult vaults in the code of points, it used to have a 6.0 difficulty score. Now it's going to have a 5.6 difficulty score. So it's not that he's doing less difficulty. It's just simply that the code of points changed. There is also now a stick bonus for every event except for pommel horse. So the final tumbling pass on floor plus the dismount on all the rest of the events can earn up to a 1/10 stick bonus if you do not move your feet on the landing. And then finally, there is the scale on floor, which many people have bemoaned and some people love. The scales are actually an interesting piece of this upcoming championships because in a recent FIG newsletter, the FIG Executive Committee recently approved changes from the FIG Men's Technical Committee to modify the code of points regarding requirements to the floor exercise. Now, this announcement has not officially come out yet. It is set to be released the week of August 4th, so next week. And so the USA Gymnastics Men's Committee got together and said, whatever these changes are, whether they're getting rid of the scale, whether they're keeping it, whether they're upgrading it, whatever these changes are, we are not going to be implementing them because it could affect the athletes who have been training this entire year, and to have to implement a change like 2 days before competition would be unkind. And so they said, in the best interest of the athletes, we are not going to implement any FIG rule change that occurs leading up to the US Championships. So if the FIG is getting rid of the scale, we will at least have one more competition left where the scale will exist. Now, moving on to the preview of the all-around competition. As I mentioned, it's a new Olympic cycle. There have been a lot of changes to the men's code of points. And really, if we're looking for a number for the top US guys, I think that they're going to be wanting to be in that 83 to 84 range this year. Now, the top guys in the world, Hashimoto Daiki, Oka Shinosuke, have broken that 85 barrier. But right now in the US, I think an 83 to 84 without bonus is a really, really good score for these US all-arounders. Now, with the bonus system, my guess is we probably will see the top athlete break 85, maybe be in the top 84 range. But remember, that score is not going to be considered real for the purposes of comparison with international scores. My best guess is that the top all-arounder here without bonus is actually probably going to go 82 to 83. I think ideally they really want to be in that 83 to 84 range, but I think anything above 83 is really positive as of right now. And then probably when you look at that third place spot, it's probably just going to be around the 80 mark without bonus. So looking at the title battle this year, my prediction is it's going to be very simply between Asher Hong and Frederick Richard. So in 2022, Asher Hong really benefited from having so much difficulty bonus, and I think that that's going to be the case here. So it's been a little difficult to track exactly what sort of routines Frederick and Asher are going to be doing because they didn't compete all around a lot this year. Of course, coming off of the Olympics, maybe they were trying to heal some injuries, just trying to rest their bodies. We haven't seen a lot from them. So I put together a table of D scores that I think that they are going to be competing, as well as how much bonus I think that they are going to get. And if I'm correct about this, with bonus, Asher Hong, I think it's going to be around a 34.5. And then with bonus, I think that Fred is going to be around a 32.3. So really you're looking about a 2-point difficulty plus bonus advantage to Asher on each day. So about 4 points overall, which is a huge margin of error. So I would say probability towards Asher winning the all-around, Fred pretty comfortably in second, and then third is wide open. And you may be sitting here listening like, Kensley, what about Brody? Brody Malone is not doing the all-around this year. We did an interview with him. It's up on Neutral Deductions YouTube page, and he talked about why he decided not to do the all-around this year. And part of it was continuing to heal his knee. Part of it was he's just in a new stage of life where he's gotten married and he wanted to go on his honeymoon and enjoy himself and be able to eat to his heart's content, and what it was like getting back in shape after that. And so he sat down with his coach, Psych Caesar, and ultimately they decided for various reasons that only doing 4 events this year would be best for him. So he is not going to be competing in the all-around. Now, looking for that third place spot in the all-around, I cannot predict the spot at all. It is truly, in my opinion, wide open. I think that third place spot is probably going to be somewhere around the 80 mark without bonus. So you've got people like Colt Walker from Stanford, who got a 79.631 at the university games. Taylor Burkhart, who's gone 83 a couple times in the NCAA, but NCAA scores don't always directly translate to the elite world for a couple different reasons. Fuzzy Bennis of Oklahoma went 81.364. He was third at the NCAA championships. Joshua Carnes won a medal in the all-around at the Pan Am Championships earlier this year. You've got Taylor Christopoulos, Preston Nye. It's so many of these guys who are really sitting around that mark. And it honestly, it could go any different way. So I am very excited to watch this bronze medal competition because I do think that the gold and silver are probably locked in. Now, one name I do want to throw in there as a potential surprise, a new name for many people that I think could be in that bronze medal position is Sasha Bogonosiuk. So he is a junior gymnast who has moved on to the University of Oklahoma. Recently at Dove Nationals, he scored an 83.3. Now, Dove Nationals is interesting because they do have their own D score and E score bonus system. But if you remove all of these bonuses, he's still going over 80. So I'm interested to see how he will compete on the national stage with these other more established gymnasts in the senior ranks. One of the most exciting things about this U.S. National Championships, it is going to be the only singular qualifier for the World Championships. So there are different ways that you can qualify, and I'm going to break all of them down. The first way is to automatically qualify. The way you automatically qualify to the World Championships teams is you have a D score that matched the highest in the world from either the European or the Asian Championships, and you have to win the event. So those scores are a 6-1 on floor exercise, a 6-2 on pommel horse, a 5-9 on still rings. For vault, it's a combo of a 5-6 and a 5-2 vault. For parallel bars, it's a 5-7. High bar, it is a 6-5. In some ways, I think that this metric is good, and in other ways, I feel like it's a little bit stringent, considering that like Olympic champion Carlos Yulo couldn't even automatically lock his spot onto the world's team on floor. Like, I think that's kind of funny. And some of these benchmarks are really, really, really hard to hit. Some of them are, I would say, like fairly normal for some of these top guys. And some of them are really hard. Like that 6-5 on high bar is absolutely outrageous. Now, that being said, there are actually 6 U.S. athletes that I personally know of who are eligible. The first is Cam Nelson on floor. He said in an interview with us that is going to be posted soon on Neutral Deductions that he has a 6-3 in training that he's been doing. Steven Nedorosik has been training a 6-2 on pommel horse. Now, the routine that he showed on Instagram was a 5-8, if I'm remembering correctly, but he has a couple different ways that he can upgrade to get that to a 6-2. Donnell Wittenberg has a 6-0 routine, so he's actually broken that 5-9 barrier. Azure Hong, of course, has the 5-6 and 5-2 difficulty on vault between the Rise Guang and the Cos double. Colt Walker actually just showed at the university games a 5-7, so he had actually been competing a less difficult routine all season, so that was exciting to see that he has upgraded there. And then Brody Malone broke the news in an interview with us that he definitely has the difficulty score to automatically select his spot for the World Championships team. Now, he's been a little bit coy about exactly what that difficulty score is going to be, but we do know that he is going to be eligible. For these 6 gymnasts, they only have to meet this difficulty score one of the 2 days. So, for example, if Brody did a 6-5 routine on day 1 and a 6-3 routine on day 2, he is still eligible to automatically lock in his spot as long as he also wins the event. So when I'm looking at this, like the landscape of what men's gymnastics looks like in the US this year, I think there are a couple people for me who would be automatic locks. Azure Hong, if he comes in and he does the Rise Guang and the Cos double, for me, there is no one who can beat him on vault in the US right now. Donnell Wittenberg, of course, can have high level difficulty, but he is not competing vault at this competition. So for me, Asher is the biggest shoe-in to lock in his spot, assuming he does actually compete 2 vaults at this competition. The other person I think is potentially a lock for this world team is Brody Malone. And that's because Brody is going to have such a difficulty bump on everyone else that I think he should be able to win high bar regardless if he falls. Based on my understanding of who else is competing high bar and what their routines are going to be, he should have a point and straight D score at least over everyone. So that's 2 points total over 2 days. And then based on the D-score bonus, he's going to have another point in difficulty, which again is going to give him a 4-point buffer over the 2 days of competition on just high bar alone. Like, he would have to fall like 3 times to really even make it competitive for him to lose that event title. So those for me are the 2 that I think have the most sure chance at locking in that spot. Then you have Colt Walker on parallel bars, and I think Colt has a decent likelihood to make this team. Like I said, he recently showed that 5.7, which is an increase in his D-score from the NCAA championships. His routine at the University Games wasn't perfect, but there isn't a ton of competition in the U.S. right now on parallel bars, so I think that there's a decent chance that he could lock that in. But again, he has to win, and there are a lot of people who can score near and around him in that range, so that's something that we're watching. Then you have Cam Nelson, and I think Cam is the least likely of the 6 to automatically lock in his spot. It's not that I think he necessarily won't still be chosen, but I'm not convinced that he's going to actually win the event. He's definitely going to have the D-score to do so, but what we've typically seen from him is when he increases his difficulty score, his execution does seem to suffer a little bit, and there are a lot of really strong floor workers coming into this competition in general, and so for me, I'm watching to see if he's going to be able to finally marry that execution with the high level of D-score as well. So that leaves us with Donnell Wittenberg and Steven Edorosik. And these 2 routines I find really, really difficult to predict. So a huge portion of Donnell's difficulty comes from his difficulty, the triple pike dismount. It's actually named after himself. And when we did an interview with him, which again is posted on Neutral Deductions YouTube, he was talking about that he never thought he was ever going to do this dismount again. The hard thing with this dismount is it's so easy to over-rotate. And it's not that Donnell is going to have this huge buffer over everyone else. He is going to have a buffer. Don't get me wrong at all. But he has Asher Hong right behind him, who is very, very good and who is doing a safer routine that he can execute very, very well. So if Donnell falls on both days on the triple pike, I think we could end up in a situation where Asher ends up winning the event, but Donnell has the difficulty score. I would say that that's maybe not the most likely scenario, but I definitely think it's something that everyone who's listening should be aware of. Then you have Steven, and Steven was, of course, masterful at the Olympics. He's had a whirlwind of a year. He's been on Dancing with the Stars. He's been to movie premieres. He's been on tour. I really just seem to have had the year of his life. But that D-score on pommel horse is brutal. And even last year, even as masterful as Steven was through the Olympic cycle, he never, I'm really trying to recollect here, but I believe I'm correct in saying he never actually hit the full difficulty of the routine that he was intending to do during that Olympic buildup in 2024. And so I'm going to be watching to see, can Steven hit that 6.2 difficulty that he says that he has? Because we just don't know. We haven't seen enough from him to say, like, yes, he's there, or no, he's not there. He is the one that I think of the 6 is potentially least likely to actually hit that difficulty benchmark, even though we know he technically can do it. So what happens if these people don't lock in their spots? Because it is possible that all 6 spots get locked in and they're just like the Olympic team last year. There is no room for discretion. It is simply math. So it is possible that those are the 6 people who are on the World Championships team. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think probably 2 to 3 of those spots are going to automatically lock, and another I don't know, 2 to 3 are going to go to discretion. So if it goes to discretion, here's how an athlete makes the World Championships team. Only athletes in the top 3 of each event or top 3 in the all-around from the 2-day totals are going to be eligible. So we will know very quickly who is even eligible to make that team. Now, in the discretionary selection, they, boldly state in no priority order are these discretionary criteria. So the first is ability to win a medal. So they're looking at things like Brandon Dang and Patty Hoops, who have won international medals. Josh Carnes won a medal on the international stage. Like people like that. Can you win a medal at the World Championships? And right now there's this amazing database that's being kept by a couple of gym fans that I will link to in the show notes that has, for the most part, all of the international scores right now. They do a really good job keeping it up for a bunch of lay people. And so that will help you understand what it probably is going to take to win a medal at the World Championships. Then the next discretionary selection criteria is ability to make an individual event final. And then finally, it's having a D-score that ranks in the top 8 for finalists from qualifications for World Cup, World Challenge Cup, and other major international events. So knowing that, believing that not all 6 spots are probably going to automatically lock, here are some of the other people who I think are in contention for making that World Championships team. The top of the list has to be Frederick Richard. So there is no way for him to automatically lock a spot for him on the team. I confirmed this with him in an interview. He said he doesn't have any of the difficulty scores required. However, he does have one of the highest all-around difficulty scores in the world right now. It's in the top 20. So this is going to be an athlete that they're going to look at and they're going to say, can he score in that, mid 83 to 84 range? Can he get on the podium that way? Because people like Jung Bo-hung have also been scoring in that mid 83 range, and it is somewhat competitive right now in the all-around. Then you have Patty Hoops, who is the only American in the top 10 in the world on any event right now. He's won medals at World Cups, at university games, and has been incredibly consistent over the past 2 years. I believe he said in the interview with us that he has not fallen in a major international competition in a couple of years. So knock on wood, do whatever superstitions you need to for him. That's because it's quite an accomplishment, especially on an event that is so tumultuous. Then you have someone like Jun Iway, who has been really quite spectacular on floor this season. He's broken that 14 barrier. I think could be someone that I think he is someone that the men's program sees as one of the future of men's gymnastics. And I think that he is someone that is playing in the back of their mind to go. Of course, you have Brandon Dang, who also won a World Cup gold medal. Now, Brandon had to downgrade his routines when he was at the Pan American Championships. And I'll be interested to see if he can bring those difficulty scores back up to be really competitive with the likes of Steven and Patty. And the U.S. is so strong on pommel horse right now with these 3. And then you've, of course, got some other guys like Aronson Mansberger and Parker Thaxton, who also can be just right there. And so battle pommel horse is not going to be quite so simple. There are really 5 very, very stellar guys who are going to be competing in that area. Then you have someone like Taylor Burkhart, who has also done well on floor this year. Alex Diab, who grabbed a bronze on still rings at a World Cup. Now, that being said, I think it's going to be really difficult for Alex to get in because you have Donnell and Asher who just have been better this year. It's always possible he's bringing upgrades that I don't know about, but I think he's going to be in the mix, but I think he's probably going to have the hardest chance out of any of the athletes I've just mentioned. So that is the way that you can make the world team, and those are the people who I think are most likely in contention for the senior world championships team. Now, with that being said, the people named to the world championships team are those that are also going to be automatically first named to the national team. So typically in a normal year, you have the top 5 or 6 in the all around, and then they do the top 5 and yada yada by the points program. And so you end up with 10 to 12 guys out on the floor that John Chang can take a photo of. And as I mentioned, it's very possible. I think that Asher and Brody are the only people who are automatically selected for national team and for the world team automatically. So it could just be Asher and Brody out there like holding hands for John Chang to capture. So I think that there's the possibility to get some really funny national team shots right off the bat. So to make national team, it's going to be the 6 guys named to the world team, then up to the 3 alternates that are named, then the next 5 athletes in rank order from the points program, and then the remaining spots are going to be assigned via discretion. Part of the national team has to do with the senior development team. And I have to tell you, when I was reading through the document of how they're going to be naming a senior development team, I came across this rule that I'm going to dub the Tate Costa rule. And frankly, in my book, you are a legend if you get a rule named after you. So like in the Code of Points, there's the Kenzo Shirai rule, where you cannot just go through a floor routine where you just twist to your heart's content. You have to be able to do a double back. So things like that. Like, this is what legends are made of. So if you remember last year, the way that Tate and his coaches approached getting onto national team is they increased his difficulty exponentially, but he fell multiple times during the competition. But it didn't matter because you only had to reach a certain difficulty benchmark to make the senior development team. This year, they have added a caveat that you have to meet a difficulty score benchmark and an execution score benchmark. So you can't just flop and fall multiple times. So we probably won't ever see a situation like Tate Costa again. But again, you're a legend if you get a rule named after you. So for the senior development team, there will be up to 6 guys named. So there's going to be up to the 4 18-year-olds who can potentially be named to junior worlds. And then some spots can go to discretion. So a couple of the names I think potentially heavily in the running for the senior development team: Nathan Roman, Dante Reeve, Danila Lakin, Preston Nye, Sasha Boganosiuk, Karen Mandava, Kai Uemura, Jun Iwe, and Brandon Dang. That's of course not everyone, but those are a couple of the guys that I'm going to be watching to see if they will make the senior development team. Moving on to the Junior Worlds selection process. So Junior Worlds is also happening this year. It's a little bit later. It's going to be in the Philippines. And those spots are also going to be chosen from the national championships. So they have the option for 1 athlete from nationals to automatically lock their spot. I am not sure that based on the way they've written it, anyone is actually going to lock their spot. So it is the senior all-around total with a D score of a 27 plus, so the highest all around plus needing a 27 D score, and it goes to an 18-year-old. So it's like very, 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 very narrow criteria. I think more than likely it goes to discretionary selection, but it is also possible that someone locks that spot. So their discretionary selection doesn't say in priority or not in priority order. And in my opinion, if I was advising them, I would say learn from the senior men's program committee and put that writing into place. Make sure it says in priority order or not priority order, because if you are reading it as a list, you do typically read things like in a logic tree, it goes from top to bottom. So I think that's an important thing to add. Now, this is really interesting. So the U.S. has not won a medal in men's artistic gymnastics at the Junior World Championships. So this will be the 3rd Junior World Championships. And I actually think they have a fairly decent shot this year. So they've got a couple, I would say 3 front runners with a 4th guy who I think is going to be heavily in the mix. So you have Dante Reeve, who won still rings at the DTB Cup, Danila Lakin, who won high bar at the DTB Cup, and then Nathan Roman, who was 3rd on floor exercise at DTB. And these 3 guys, I think, are probably the 3 front runners. They're competing in the senior session at the U.S. Championships this year. I think it will be a little bit hard for anyone to break into those ranks, especially considering that Nadi Brady is going to be not competing this year, who I think probably would have been a shoo-in for this team, but unfortunately is still recovering from injury from the DTB Cup. Then you have a 4th guy, Maxime Khan, who's just a little bit younger, but also is part of that DTB group and is quite stellar. So those are the 4 athletes that I think are most likely to make that junior team. as a way to wrap up this podcast, I'm going to give you an update on Lorenzo Bonicelli, who was the Italian gymnast who was injured at the University Games. So this update comes from the Italian Federation's website. And they said the consultation after an in-depth analysis of his current clinical condition revealed that Lorenzo is suffering from a cervical sprain with subluxation of the fifth vertebra, which was promptly and flawlessly reduced during surgery. Unfortunately, he remains suffering from neurological damage to the extent of which cannot yet be assessed. The 23-year-old from GL and Lecco is in good condition, but a tracheotomy was performed to ease his breathing. He will need at least another week of hospitalization before his discharge can be considered. So his original gym, his junior gym, set up a GoFundMe. They are asking for 90,000 euros to help ease the burden on his family and help cover any medical expenses. I think they've raised about 60,000 euros as of when I checked this morning, and I will also link that down in the show notes as well. Again, to wrap all of this up, we will be covering the U.S. National Gymnastics Championships. Again, we have interviews from several of the top athletes on our YouTube channel. If you want to financially support Neutral Deductions, but you don't have the liquid funds to do so, watching our stuff on YouTube is the way to help us because we are actually getting some ad revenue. It is not a lot of money, but it is some amount of money. So go watch our things on YouTube. That is super, super helpful to us. Now, if you have liquid funds and want to help support bringing men's gymnastics coverage to life, you can donate via PayPal or Stripe. And these donations really do help make a difference. Like this year, it allowed us to go to Germany. It's allowed us to buy new microphones. It's allowed us to have a better ring light and camera set up to do these interviews for you. And so I really do try and put this money back into creating the product for you. As of this point, I have not taken any financial gain for myself. It is literally all gone to paying for website expenses, all of these things, travel, because I really want to make sure that you are getting the best product possible first. So if you have any questions, if you have comments, if you have insider tips, you can email us at neutraldeductions@gmail.com. That's all for this week. We'll see you next time.